why the best version of Taysom Hill may be on full display in 2021, and what to do about tickets to next weekend's opening matchup against the Green Bay Packers, all on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering the New Orleans Saints, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode, we're going to spend most of it talking a bit about Taysom Hill and why the best may be yet to come for the multi-dimensional offensive weapon in this New Orleans Saints offense in 2021. We're going to talk about him from the run game perspective, as a receiver, and of course also as a passing threat, and what he can do under center here in 2021 as well. Then we're going to wrap up with a quick piece of news around David Patten, some unfortunate news there, and what to do with your tickets, or about how to get tickets for the opening matchup against the Green Bay Packers next weekend. All of that on today's episode, and as always, I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola, co-managing editor over on CanalStreetChronicles.com, and your Tuesday co-host on the National Locked On NFL podcast. We got all of that and a little bit of lanyard for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints, your team every day. All right, family, if you're looking for more NFL content, don't forget to check out the Ultimate Season Preview 2021 as well. NFC North today, NFC South on Monday, where Julian Council of Locked On Panthers absolutely bodies Aaron Freeman of Locked On Falcons. You don't want to miss it. It's hysterical. But I want to talk a bit today about Taysom Hill. We're going to hit from all three perspectives here. And we're going to talk about why I believe the best version of Taysom Hill is still to come here in 2021. So let's start with Taysom Hill as a runner, the runner, right? You get the ball in his hand. What is he able to do with it in his hand? My contention around Taysom Hill as a dual threat quarterback is that he's not a very efficient scrambler. And I know that this is controversial, and I know I'm going to get a bunch of comments about it and everything like that because he had like 2 good scrambles. And I get it. I understand. He did. Particularly against the Falcons, he had the big 40-yard scramble to where he got away to a completely open field. However, more times than not, what we saw from Taysom Hill was an inability to escape pressure, or the unfortunate habit of scrambling into pressure. And it's because Taysom Hill's run style isn't conducive of that of a dual threat quarterback. If you want to be a dual threat quarterback or a mobile quarterback, you have to be elusive. Taysom Hill's not elusive. He's strong, and he will run you over. And that doesn't work necessarily for a dual threat quarterback, right? I mean, you can go out there and see Taysom Hill every week, put a linebacker on his back, and make a cornerback regret suiting up for the game that day, but you're not going to see that same type of a play style behind the line of scrimmage when you're talking about lowering your shoulder on 300-plus pound defensive linemen, right? That's not going to work the way that it works downfield, which is where Taysom Hill is most efficient. Get the ball in his hand in space, hand the ball off to him, whatever it might be, but let him get horizontal, let him get up and down, north and south. That's what I was looking for. And he will run over anybody that's in his way, but that doesn't necessarily work for a quarterback. So when I think about what Taysom Hill does well in terms of, creating yards after catch or creating yards after contact, more importantly, I think that having him in this offensive role suits him better because of his run style than him being a quarterback and having to try to create and get to that point from behind the line of scrimmage, which doesn't necessarily aid itself there. So I think this is one example of how you get the best version of Taysom Hill here in 2021. The other example is him as a receiver. If you look over his time with the New Orleans Saints, targeted 24 times in 2019, targeted just over 10 times. I think it was around 12 times in 2020. Not a lot of targets coming his way last year because he was, all over the offense, of course, but then he also had 4 games that he spent out as the quarterback as well. So obviously he wasn't targeting himself, which could have also been fun. But when it comes down to it, when you look at where he was most efficient, a quarter of his throws or a quarter of his receptions in each of those seasons came 10 plus yards downfield from the line of scrimmage beyond the first down marker. In 2020, when it came to those passes between 10 to 19 yards, he had a 158.3 perfect passer rating when targeted. In 2019, in that same area of the field, 148.6 passer rating when he was targeted. So very efficient there, some of the higher Pro Football Focus grades in those areas as well. And he was also very efficient over the middle of the field, making those sort of tough catches over the middle. Now, Jameis Winston's average depth of target seems to match up very well with where Taysom Hill is most efficient. Remember, Taysom Hill being most efficient, 10 yards or more down from the line of scrimmage beyond the first down marker. Jameis Winston's preseason average depth of target was 11.9 yards per throw. When you look at Drew Brees in 2020, that number was 6.6. In 2019, it was a nice 6.9, but you didn't get the amount of throws traveling beyond the first down marker, which is where we see that Taysom Hill has been most efficient, although he does get most of his yards after catch when he catches the ball closer to the line of scrimmage, because again, you're giving him the ball in space. But in terms of him being able to be a playmaker and pick up chunk yardage, you're generally looking at him in those crossing routes, the crossing patterns over the middle of the field, allowing him to find a place to sit down in a zone, head towards the sideline. That's where you're seeing a lot of those big plays come from him in terms of chunk yardage. So Jameis Winston throwing the ball to Taysom Hill could potentially open Taysom Hill to be the best version of himself, not only in the run game when he's utilized and gets the ball in his hands in space, but also as a pass catcher as well. The other thing to consider is where Taysom Hill lines up. Back in 2019, where he had 7 touchdowns, he spent most of his time lining up in line. He also lined up quite a bit in the slot. In 2020, we saw him mostly line up in the slot. But Jameis Winston, as a quarterback, we've talked a bit about, Adam Troutman, Juwan Johnson, these guys that play tight end who are in line for a big year here because of the fact that Jameis Winston loves to target tight ends. That could benefit Taysom Hill as well. And I know Taysom Hill has sort of restructured his body, redistributed his muscle a little bit, but he hasn't dropped so much weight that he's all of a sudden not going to be efficient and he's not going to be effective as an offensive weapon. And there's also time for him to continue to build up and bulk up over the course of the season. What he is now doesn't necessarily mean that it's what he has to be by the end of the season or even the middle of the season for that matter. So he still should be effective and efficient producing from those multiple areas over on the offensive side. I predicted a while back that the first player to score a touchdown for the New Orleans Saints in 2021 would be Taysom Hill. And this is why, because I do believe you get the best version of Taysom Hill here in 2021 with Jameis Winston under center and him in his new situation where you're looking for help if you're Sean Payton at all pass catching positions, both at tight end as well as at wide receiver. Not a lot of slot targets in the preseason to Saints wide receivers, only a total of 13 over more than 70 plus targets over the course of the preseason. So maybe you see Taysom Hill more in line, maybe you see him more out wide, maybe you see him more at the backfield. But one of the things that you're going to see in certain game situations is him under center. And that's what we're going to talk about next. Taysom Hill as a quarterback, because he's going to get mixed into that part of the game. So we're going to talk about how efficient and effective he can be here in 2021 as we continue to talk a bit about this best version of Taysom Hill that we might be able to see this season with Jameis Winston under center. We'll talk about that here more in just a moment as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. But first, I want to tell you about our good friends over at Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market. You can find them at built.com, as well as all of the other Built products as well, including a new product that they have that is actually vegan. It's gluten-free. It's got a whole bunch of stuff, and it's great, fantastic pack of protein. These little basically protein balls, essentially, that you can buy. They have a brownie peanut butter. They also have a coconut almond. And of course, you have all of the amazing flavors that you can get of the Built bars as well. If you want to stick with the protein bars, which I highly recommend, coconut almond, salted caramel, cookies and cream, all of this, 18 grams of protein, but only 4 or 5 grams of sugar, despite the fact that these things are covered in 100% chocolate. I know it sounds too good to be true, but don't just take my word for it. Prove it to yourself. Go and check them out, built.com. And when you go ahead and pick up, I recommend a sample box so you can try all the different flavors. Don't forget to use the promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, so you can get 15% off of your order, whether it's your first order or your next order over at built.com. All right, family, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. Talked a little bit about Taysom Hill as a runner with the ball in his hands, how to get the ball to him in the passing game, and how this could be the best version of Taysom Hill that we have seen so far coming into 2021. Now I want to talk a little bit about Taysom Hill, the passer, because he's still going to get mixed in at the quarterback position. So with that being the case, where do we see him and how does it differ in terms of the adjustment of rhythm between he and Jameis Winston as opposed to the adjustment of rhythm between he and Drew Brees? And here's the way that I look at it. When it comes down to what you saw Taysom do in place of Drew Brees, there were a lot of times where you saw him utilize in those sort of third down and red zone situations where a defense is forced to play honest because he can keep the ball, he can tuck the ball and run, he can get through that contact, all of that. However, when it comes down to the other times that you saw him on the field, you oftentimes saw him come in to take shot plays. And it gave away when the New Orleans Saints were looking to take shot plays. If you're just now crossing the 50-yard line, you're at the opponent's, let's say, 40, 45, and all of a sudden you march Taysom Hill out there, then there's an expectation that, hey, they're looking to push the ball where Drew Brees couldn't. And again, that's not talking bad about Drew Brees. Drew Brees acknowledged the limitations of his arm strength after he retired and talked a bit about how they had to work around that. And the Saints did. They built the most efficient offense in NFL history a couple of times based upon what limitations they had and how they had to utilize what Drew Brees did extremely well, which was be an accurate passer and put the ball where only the receivers could get it. Now, in 2021, coming into the season where the Saints offense should look to be a little bit more vertical, the limitations of the condensed offense aren't there. So it gives away a little bit less when you put Taysom Hill out there, because if you want to take a shot downfield, you're keeping Jameis Winston on the field. Or maybe you put Taysom Hill out on the field and then still take a shot deep, because no one is going to expect you to take Jameis Winston off the field in order to take a shot deep, right? So I think that there are some bits of gamesmanship that you could see a couple of times to where Sean Payton could march Taysom Hill out on the field in the in sort of the area where you might look to take a shot and still take a shot and actually have it open, because it doesn't telegraph everything to the opposing defense. Now, when it comes to the red zone, we've seen Taysom Hill be very efficient and work well in the red zone. He was extremely efficient in the red zone throughout training camp, actually. And so him as a passer in the red zone could be an additional wrinkle that you see beyond the usual threat to run or running the option or the RPO that you would see between he and Alvin Kamara. Remember, Alvin Kamara told Sean Payton during the Falcons game with Taysom Hill as they were marching back into halftime, hey, they're playing this run concept this way over on the defensive side. Taysom should run. We should run that play again, and Taysom should keep it. And Taysom kept it and scored a touchdown. So it's not about vulturing away from anybody. It's about the best play call that's going to put points on the board. And this is an opportunity here to where you look at what Taysom Hill's opportunity was over the course of this offseason. Go out there, win the starting quarterback position. But if you don't, then you still have the opportunity to score 7 touchdowns in this offense, just like you did 2 years ago, and still contribute to a competitive and hopefully winning team. And that was one of the things that I think you had to know as the head coach of this team and as the coaching staff of this team when you're trying to make a decision between these two quarterbacks, that you still have sort of this great situation with Taysom Hill where he can still be impactful for you, whether he's under center or whether he's not. And if you're able to maximize that by having a quarterback like Jameis Winston be the one that's competing for him, where all of a sudden the offense opens up a little bit more, the run game opens up a little bit more because of that, because you're not going to see boxes stacked, which could, by the way, also benefit Taysom Hill as a runner, either out of the backfield or in the short passing game, because there will be potentially lighter boxes out there, more defensive backs for him to make regret putting on uniforms for the day. And then you also have the ability to now utilize both of these quarterbacks in specific situations and in specific ways without telegraphing, hey, we're looking to take a shot downfield. So those are the reasons why I really think that you'll see potentially the best version of Taysom Hill as an offensive weapon for the New Orleans Saints in 2021. The opportunity is there. The intent is there, as we always talk about. Where do those two things meet? And is the coaching there? And I think, of course, with Sean Payton, it absolutely is. As we continue on with today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about where this New Orleans Saints and Green Bay Packers game is moving, what it means, and then the unfortunate situation around David Patten as we pay tribute to him as well. So we have all of that coming up as we continue on with today's episode. But before we get to that, of course, when we get to week 1 conversation, we're going to be talking about the New Orleans Saints and the Green Bay Packers and what the betting lines are around them. But to give you an early sneak peek, BetOnline.ag actually shifted the lines because of the fact that the New Orleans Saints are no longer playing at home. Remember, there's always a little bit of a -3 favor when it comes to the home team. That ended up proving true here with this game moving to a neutral site where the Saints went from being a -1.5 point underdog to now being a -4.5 point underdog on the road, right? / at home on the neutral site. So go and check out betonline.ag. If you like that line and you want to take that, you think the Saints can either lose by less than 5 or win this game outright, go ahead and check them out over at betonline.ag. You're going to get a 100% welcome bonus when you sign up. And of course, there's a bunch of competitions you can get into as well, including an NFL kickoff competition for the September 9th Thursday night opener between the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in which you can get your deposit back, your wager back, if you lose that wager up to $25 by using the promo code NFL100. Go and check them out. They're fantastic. BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts. Let's get it. Who Dat Nation, wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints. Want to pay a little tribute and say rest in peace to David Patten, former NFL wide receiver, former New Orleans Saint. Finished his career actually with the New Orleans Saints in 2007 and 2008, although he didn't actually finish his career until 2010. But the Saints were the last team that he had regular season action with. During those 2 seasons, he was targeted 107 times, caught 65 passes for 954 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was a versatile threat. He could run, he could catch, he even threw a touchdown. In fact, in one game in 2001 with the New England Patriots, which is the team that he had the most impact with throughout his career, started his career with them in 1997 and then played in New England with one stint in Cleveland in between, all the way through the 2004 season. In one of those games in 2001, I believe it was against the Indianapolis Colts, he threw 4, ran 4, and caught a touchdown as well. So he was very busy in that game. But unfortunately, news came out this morning that David Patten had passed away due to injury sustained in a motorcycle accident on Thursday morning, or he passed away on Thursday morning. So just wanted to quickly say rest in peace and thank David Patten for his time in New Orleans and, of course, his time in the NFL as well. Always very sad to hear something like this happen with any player around the NFL, former, present, current, whatever it might be. David Patten was 47 years old at the time of his passing, so we just wanted to take a moment to pay our respects, say rest in peace, and thank you to David Patten. Now, something that's not necessarily going to lighten the mood at all, but, it's important to share these things and talk about these things. But the New Orleans Saints, of course, moving their game on Sunday, September 12th against the Green Bay Packers to the Jacksonville Jaguars TIAA Bank Field. I'm going to struggle to say that every time. Y'all, please bear with me over the course of the next week. But TIAA Bank Field is where the New Orleans Saints will host the Green Bay Packers for this matchup. Again, that line has moved from -1.5 to -4.5 in this game after the loss of home field advantage, essentially, in this one, now that it is a neutral site. But if you want to get tickets for it, those tickets are now on sale. You can get them over on NewOrleansSaints.com. And if you're a season ticket holder that's unable to go to this game, or even that is going to this game, you will have to buy the tickets to go. But if you file for a refund, that refund will come to you at the end of the season. You can also credit the value back towards your 2022 season renewal as well. So it's going to feel a little inconvenient for a moment, but ultimately the money comes back around and those tickets are now on sale. There is an expectation that this is going to be a New Orleans Saints fan heavy game still, considering everything that's going on and considering the fact that it is in close enough vicinity, or the closest that the New Orleans Saints could get to keeping it as around New Orleans as possible, which was a big thing for them. It's one of the reasons why they looked at like AT&T Stadium and all that, is because it was a close distance for Saints fans to travel. And it was an area that a lot of Saints fans had already gone to, at least Texas as a whole, which of course, can take you an entire day to drive through, but Dallas, Texas, Houston, Texas, places like that are at least in some kind of a spitting distance. But unfortunately, that the Dallas AT&T Stadium has a concert the following weekend, and the band has a contract that means that they have to be in there the weekend before or something like that. And so they're not able to play at AT&T Stadium, so they're over at TIAA Bank Field. So hopefully a lot of Saints fans will still make it out. This, of course, is the site of Jacksonville is the site of one of the most exciting moments in New Orleans Saints history with the River City Relay. Hopefully it doesn't come down to another River City Relay. We're not going to talk about the missed extra point that happened right after that. That's okay, not a big deal. The Saints weren't able to get into the playoffs for it anyway, but what an amazing and incredible moment there. So hopefully we get some similar fireworks from the New Orleans Saints, Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, Marquez Callaway, and this offense or really, I guess it was the special teams in the River City Relay, but regardless, from this team to open up the 2021 NFL season. All right, y'all, I appreciate you very much for making me your first listen, one of your listens here throughout the day. And now that you're done, go and check out Locked On Bets. Win yourself some money this weekend because college football is back. And we're so excited about it. So go and check out Locked On LSU as well. Matt Moscona getting you ready for the LSU Tigers taking on the UCLA Bruins. And then we will be back with you on Monday to get you ready for the New Orleans Saints and Green Bay Packers. Just a quick sort of programming note about what next week is going to feel like. The first day on Monday would usually be a recap of the game before, since we don't have a game before and this is the first game. I'm going to spend Monday and Tuesday talking a bit about what the New Orleans Saints offense with Jameis Winston looks like, what we expect to see in all elements of the game, run game, passing game, all of it. So we'll talk about all that, and we'll also talk about the defense on Tuesday. On Thursday, we're going to be joined by Peter Bukowski for our crossover Thursday episode to break down everything you need to know. Of course, we'll keep you up to date with injury report, all of that stuff as well throughout the week. And then on Friday, we will get to keys to victory and our predictions for the game and some other games around the NFC South as well. So a full week coming up. Don't miss it as we get started here with game week officially the next time that we are here. And of course, if anything big happens over the course of the weekend, I'll be here with you then too. I appreciate you very much, everybody, for being here. Y'all keep safe. Don't forget to check out all the resources in the description, however you're taking in the show. Remember, we're free on all platforms every Monday through Friday. And until then, you can follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how your mom and them. And trust you, that nation. I'll holla at you.